Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Severance, Season 1, Episode 3, In Perpetuity is the episode I am going to recap, break down, spoil. If you don't want to be spoiled on this episode or on this show, I would highly recommend checking it out over on Apple TV Plus. It is an Apple TV Plus exclusive TV show and a great show. So let's get into it, shall we? If maybe you just want to listen to this and just don't want to watch the show, but you like listening to me explain everything that happens in the episode, either way, you have been warned, and welcome. Let's get it started. This episode takes place pretty much right after the events of the previous episode where we left off. Petey was staying with Mark. Mark went and found him at abandoned, run-down greenhouses, brought him into his basement where he's hiding him out. Petey's in the shower, has some reintegration sickness, bleeding from the nose, kind of flashbacks, blending of memories and current things. Not doing well. Mark hears him. Petey kind of makes an excuse for the sound of him falling down. Has a robe for Petey. So Mark checking on Petey in the shower, making sure that's okay. Comes out after the shower, and he's having while talking to Mark, he has more of these kind of I don't know if I should call them flashbacks. I will call them flashbacks, but I don't know. Basically, like these memories of him at work being blended with what's happening in the moment. And while that's happening, you get to see a little bit of what it was like, what the camaraderie was like inside the MDR department, the micro data refinement department, while Petey was still there, kind of going back and forth with Dylan. He brings up Sunset Parks, something about Dylan, 4% on Sunset Parks. Mark asks Petey in the now what that means. We don't know. One of the many questions that potentially will be answered at some point. We also see Selvig next door, pouring herself a glass of milk, sitting down next to the window, clearly spying on Mark, looking through her window at Mark's place. Now, Petey and Mark are down in the basement, so she can't see, obviously, that Petey is there. Clearly, that would be a big issue. But she is there with her milk, watching, waiting for Mark to come out of the basement. We have Petey kind of explaining these reintegration issues he's having with his brain, how his memories are relative, how his first day at Severance is sitting next to, in his memory bank, sitting next to his fifth birthday. Like, so they're kind of like the deck has been shuffled. But he tells Mark that they, quote unquote, they say his memories will get better. And Mark is asking who they is. Are they the WMC, the Whole Mind Collective? And Petey says, no, it is not them. In my opinion, I would assume it would have to be somebody that either works at Lumon or used to work at Lumon, because all of their technology, when we saw the process of Helly getting severed, all of their utensils are Lumon branded. The device that's implanted in her brain is Lumon branded. So it's a very proprietary type of procedure, proprietary probably type of tools. So it would have to be somebody that came from or is still within the Lumon industry who is behind this, and not just the people on the outside kind of protesting it. Either way, Petey says it is not the Whole Mind Collective, and asking Mark, don't you want to know what it is you're doing down there? And Mark doesn't want to know because it's providing him. He thinks it's providing him with help. It's how he is running away from this trauma that he had with the passing of his wife. And Petey is asking, like, is it worth it for the help that you think you're getting? Is it worth it if the work you're doing is causing people to die around the world? Which Petey doesn't necessarily know if that's what their job is. Obviously, it is not only is the severance procedure a form of keeping that information secret, but even when they are at work, they're doing the job that they're doing is so like weird that they don't know. They have their own weird theories, as we heard in the last episode, of what the numbers mean. So there's like levels of protection. So whatever it is they are doing, it is something that Lumon does not want getting out. Like, this is the highest level of protection that they can have to make sure stuff doesn't get out into the world. Which, if you're keeping that big of a secret, yeah, it could be something as big or as dangerous as they are killing people. But we don't know. Petey doesn't want to know. But Petey wants to find out. That's why he got the reintegration thing. That's why he's reaching out to Mark to see if Mark wants to know more. And we find out Petey says that there's a department at Severance that never leaves. And it's not like never leaves like you feel like you never leave. Like all of your innies are perpetually awake at work forever, which is hell on earth. But there's a department that is there perpetually awake. Well, maybe not even awake. Maybe they get to sleep at work, but they never get to go home. They don't have an outie aspect of themselves. They're 100% innies, which I don't know at this point. Could be a theory. Could be like, how does Petey know this? We don't know. But sounds like a horrible thing. Wouldn't be surprising if that's a reality for some people that are at Lumon. Like, for that to be, you would think that like this giant company has tried or is attempting to try many different variations of whatever it is they're trying to do with people with the severance thing. So to have one group of people to be 100% there at all times, probably the highest level of protection, right, would be this department, which is just horrifying to think of. But Petey's very paranoid. He's also kind of starting to get mixed up, starting to have the reintegration sicknesses, thinking that like Irving's going to walk in despite the fact that he's in the basement with Mark. And then he's also worried that June is going to walk in. Mark asks who June is. We find out that June is Petey's daughter. She likes to play the drums. Obviously, she's not going to be walking in, but Petey is just clearly not all there. So Mark, you know, after this conversation, goes back upstairs, heads back upstairs to end his night, as he always ends his night, seemingly with a glass of whiskey sitting in front of the TV to fall asleep in front of the TV. Selvig, still waiting by her window, sees Mark come out of the basement and shows concern. Like, it's weird that, like, Selvig is so concerned with Mark's well-being, making sure he gets sleep, which is a weird contrast to who she is as Cobel inside of Severance. But she sees Mark come out. She's like, oh, Mark. And Mark turns on the TV, and there is, a TV anchor speaking with a PR person or whatever from Severance. And there's this scandal that's kind of going on where a woman got pregnant while her innie got pregnant in work. And, of course, the Lumon PR person is trying to put spin on everything, not really answering any questions, constantly diverting with the language that's being used, the terms that are being used for the people that are inside, the people that are severed. So kind of just another taste of the controversy that Severance is having, that Lumon is having with the Severance program, which earlier, the first episode, We heard while Mark was at dinner that there are congressional issues with the thing, so just part of that. And, of course, Mark not wanting to hear any of it, obviously kind of got his fill with talking to Petey downstairs, and now you have this on the news. He just turns it to just a random show so he can fall asleep, as he does every night, seemingly. Falls asleep in front of the TV. Next morning, wakes up, goes down to wake up Petey, lets Petey know where he's at, and tells Petey again that he doesn't want to be reintegrated. And Petey tells, Mark tells Petey, obviously told him earlier that, like, it helps him. He tells Petey that, the reason it helps him is because his wife died in a car accident. So we find out that how Mark's wife died. She died in a car accident 2 years before, and so it's helped him deal with that, quote unquote, deal with it, which really we know that he's running away from it. So Petey tells Mark that all of the guys would notice that Mark would, when he would come into work, would have red eyes, and they would always joke about him having elevator allergies, which obviously he didn't. And Petey tells him that, like, you think you are getting away from the pain by doing this, but deep down, you are taking that pain with you. Deep down, your innie is still feeling that pain. They just don't know what it is. Similarly to sleep, right? Like, he's still, like, Mark's innie telling Helly in the last episode that you just need to focus on what the effects of sleep feel like, since you don't get to experience going home and going to sleep. Similarly, his innie is experiencing whatever emotional, because when you have emotional reactions to things, there are chemical processes going on. Your brain is releasing different chemicals in your brain, in your system, to make you feel bad. And his innie's been dealing with that. So it's interesting. So Mark is, like, slowly understanding that maybe his plan to avoid the pain of losing his wife is not necessarily working as he thought it would. So Mark leaves to go to work. On his way out, he sees Selvig on her stoop with a hairdryer de-icing her stoop, which is so weird, the Selvig character, because in the previous episode, she says she has a shop that's like an herbal shop, apparently, holistic shop, and she seems kind of like an eccentric type of a hippie lady. But then inside, she's cold and seemingly hates Mark. Especially, at least that's what she tells Helly in that first episode. But she's outside de-icing her stoop with the hairdryer. Mark goes to work. And now a quick word from our sponsor. Now you can wear The Many Faces, original art by Ray Taylor. Select pieces from the ongoing series of abstract ink paintings. All products made with high-quality materials, made right here in the USA. Go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF merch to browse the entire collection and save yourself an extra 10% when you check out by using coupon code RTSTMF. So once again, go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF merch and save 10% when you use coupon code RTSTMF. And now, back to our show. Shows up to work. An envelope's waiting for him. He opens the envelope. It's the group pictures that they took the other day. Helly shows up and tells him that she got her first numbers while he was away. And he didn't realize, obviously, that he had a sick day. So, his innie finds that out. And also that Helly is kind of, Dylan helped Helly figure things out, helped with the training while he was gone. And part of Mark's new job duties as being the department head is to read the announcements, which we find out that Mark at one point used to be kind of a goofball. And when Petey would read the announcements, Mark would interrupt, was well known for interrupting the announcements with fart noises, which is definitely not the Mark that we see inside Lumon. So, despite the fact that his wife had died and he was taking that pain, he was still a goofball. But now that like his innie is dealing with the loss of Petey, who is his best friend, inside, like his best friend just disappeared, just stopped coming into work one day. So Mark's innie is dealing with the knowledge of that loss, and probably since the feeling of loss is like has similar related emotions and effects between death and just, Petey leaving, it probably is amplifying the emotions that Mark is bringing in from the loss of his wife, and then compounding that with or conflating that with the loss of Petey. But we find out that Mark was at one point a goofball. Milchick is taking pictures while Mark is reading the announcements, and Helly told Mark before this announcement thing that she had put in a request to resign. And in the announcements, we find out, which apparently is the fastest turnaround Mark has ever seen on a request, that her request had been denied. Helly, upset, runs into the bathroom, closes the door. Cut back to outside of Mark's house. His sister, Devon, and her husband, Ricken, are outside. They have a gift for him. They put it on his stoop. After they leave, Selvig goes over, takes the book, which we find out it's a book. She takes the gift off the stoop, and she goes into Mark's house. So we find out that Selvig has keys to Mark's house. She goes into his house. Meanwhile, Petey is in the basement trying to redraw this floor plan, this map of inside Severn. Hears that somebody is there, so he goes to hide. Cobel goes downstairs, or Selvig goes downstairs where Petey is hiding. She goes over to the container, the storage bin, with Gemma's crafts in it. She opens it up, takes out the same candle that Mark took out previously and smelled. She takes it out, and she actually steals the candle as well. So we'll see how that plays into things. And she gets a call, and the call she gets is from Milchick. And Milchick, when Helly found out that her request had been denied, he immediately calls Cobel. So this is the moment where her phone rings, and she picks up the phone, now talking to Milchick. And while she's talking to Milchick, Petey peeks out from where he's hiding and is starting to have those cross flashbacks and realizes that Selvig is Cobel. That Cobel is now in the basement with him at Mark's house. And he leaves. He escapes. Cut back to Mark standing outside the bathroom. Helly's been in there for 45 minutes. He warns her, goes in, catches her, writing a message on her arms. And Mark has seen this before. Clearly. Right? Like this is like not new to him. And she tries to do it to where, you put your arms together and it spells out a thing. And he brings up that Grainer has this stuff called bad soap. If we don't know what bad soap is, I would imagine it would be whatever Grainer uses to clean off messages people write on their bodies to try and sneak out messages. Right. This bad soap. So it's probably something that's very painful. But it's a very weird term. Either way, he gets Helly to wash it off. Irving is outside when Mark comes out, very concerned, as Irving is one to always be very concerned. Concerned for Mark that he's, getting over this quote-unquote food poisoning. and that high-stress situation is probably not good for him or whatever. But he also wants to help Helly. He knows Helly's having a hard time, and he recommends they should all go to the Perpetuity Wing. So while that's happening, Cobel shows up to work through a different entrance, and she has the book, gives it to Milchick, tells him to read through it to make sure there's no messages. Apparently, the book, when he pulls it out of the packaging, was written by Ricken. Apparently, according to Cobel, it's his 5th book that he's written. The title is The You Are. And it's Milchick's job to read through it and make sure there's no messages. Which is interesting because Mark, I mean, I guess his outie can talk to... But, like why wouldn't... If his sister and Ricken had messages for Mark, why wouldn't they just tell Mark? Because they can clearly socialize with him. He went and had dinner with them. Like, there doesn't seem to be any restrictions outside of work. So there doesn't seem to be, like, they wouldn't need to hide any messages within the book. Either way, Milchick is reading through the book to make sure there's no messages in there. Where are we at? Mark comes in, and we see that there's, some of the kind of logistics, some of the corporate things that aspects of Severance that kind of keep everything in line, keep everybody very organized and on task. He comes in to talk to Cobel to see if they can go to the Perpetuity Wing. And first he's stopped by Milchick, and Milchick asks if he filled out a request for supervisor interaction. So clearly, if they want to talk to Cobel, they have to fill out a piece of paper, which would make sense considering the fact that Cobel isn't always at work. Previously she was in Mark's house. So she probably does stuff outside of work. Who knows how often she's actually at Severance, but having to fill out that paperwork would provide a buffer so you can't just... There's the farthest from an open door policy. But Cobel calls Mark in, despite the fact he didn't do it. Mark goes in asking to take everybody to go to this Perpetuity Wing. And then Cobel asks if he filled out a common space reservation slip. So to make sure different departments don't run into each other. But she kind of goes over that way. And Mark brings up Petey again and how he used to set the tone. And we get another one of these Cobel-Mark interactions that are so weird.
I don't know. It's been weird since Petey left. I mean, he set the tone.
If Petey were the tone setter you're lionizing him as, he'd still be here.
What does that mean?
Are you going to make me throw my mug at you?
Why would you?
Get MDR to its numbers.
Okay.
Mark, what I just did was something I knew that you could handle and grow from. It was very painful for me. I hope that you'll let it help you.
Just such a weird interaction. Obviously, the kind of messaging is, don't worry, don't talk about Petey. Let's forget Petey ever existed. Just focus on microdata refinements numbers. That's all you should be focused on. That's all you need to do. I don't know why she would throw a mug at him. Like, complete opposite person, Cobel versus Selvig. Selvig, compassionate, seemingly compassionate, cares a lot about Mark, whereas Cobel, just has nothing but disdain for him. Now, outside, At the desks, we see Helly writing herself another note, putting the note, folding it up, and putting it inside of a Sharpie cap, taking the little paperclip part of the Sharpie cap off, putting a piece of tape over the open end of the cap. She heads over to the glasses where she fills one up and puts it in her mouth, is about to swallow it when Mark shows up again, and da-da-da-da-da, Mark knows! Like, all of these things have been done before. And Mark explains to her, it's like, listen, they can detect messages inside the body too, and it's Milchick's job to extract the message. So it's really important to know when you swallowed the message so he knows which end to go extract the message from. And it's like, clearly, whether it was Mark himself, it wouldn't be surprising if it was Mark who had tried to do all this communication and knows what the break room is. Like, or it was just somebody else that's worked there. You know, maybe it was Carol that worked there before that was brought up. We don't know anything about. But Mark clearly knows and has experience seeing other people trying to do what Helly is trying to do, with trying to kind of smuggle this information out. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So now they leave, they go, they're on this tour. Irving is doing his spiel as they're going down the endless maze of hallways. Irving talking about how he has this mnemonic poem to remember the 8 CEOs, going on and on about poem structure and how it's not necessarily technically correct structure or whatever. Clearly, Irving understands and is somebody who studies the arts. He was enamored by the painting that was in the waiting room of the wellness center. Had a great time talking with Bert about the paintings and really seemed to light up when talking about it. Clearly knows a lot about poetry. Meanwhile, Dylan hands out these Xerox copies of the Eagan Bingo, which is a fun little thing for them to stay entertained while visiting the Perpetuity Wing. Meanwhile, they run into, speak of the devil, they run into Bert and the only other member of the optics and design department. They meet each other at a crossroads, as it were. They were just coming from a team-building exercise, an egg drop challenge. So the other member of the optics and design team is holding a tray of broken eggs in their little contraptions that clearly failed. You see Dylan kind of going off the handlebars again, kind of angry and defensive against these people. You see, obviously, Irving is quite pleasantly pleased to have run into Bert again. And they kind of have their back and forth, which is nice. And as the optics and design department leave, Bert gives Irving a little wink. It's kind of a beautiful little romance that's blooming between those two. Two older men. I mean, the optics and design department are, old in comparison. Irving is the only old person in the micro data refinement department. But there's definitely a little love connection there blooming between Bert and Irving. Bert and Ernie. I wonder if that's something the writers put in there on purpose. But gives him a little wink. Meanwhile, cut back to Cobel going back into her office. And she sees that Milchick is setting up one of those little speaker boxes on her desk. We see a new character. Natalie is there. There's going to be a board meeting. They want to talk to Cobel. Cobel thinks it's possibly about Helena, a.k.a. Helly, but it is not. It is about Peter, what is his name? Peter Kilmer, a.k.a. Petey. So the board wants to know about Petey, what happened to Petey, which Cobel, and it's the same kind of interaction that happened when Mark had his meeting with the board, where you never hear the board say anything. It's kind of this very awkward thing where Cobel has to kind of just start speaking. And the one time the board apparently says something, they say it into an earpiece that Natalie has in her ear. And that is when they only speak up when Cobel starts to mention that Petey, that they don't really have any information on what happened to him, but there's rumors going around that maybe it was a reintegration. The board speaks to Natalie. Natalie relays the message that there's no such thing as reintegration. It's not even possible. You need to focus on the numbers. The same thing that Cobel was regurgitating to Mark earlier. Don't worry about Petey. That's not even... Just get that out of your head. Obviously, they want to know what happened, but if you don't have any information, they don't want to hear any rumors. They don't want to hear anything about reintegration. All they want to make sure is that their numbers, that the micro data refinement numbers are hit at the end of the quarter. Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. So cut back to the micro data refinement crew is walking through the hallways, and we get one of the kind of comedic relief moments that we get throughout this show that I appreciate, and that is them, especially Dylan, coming up with very creative theories on things, talking about the coup, this coup that happened, having theories on the different departments. Let's play that clip.
There's seriously a two-person department? Like they only ever see each other?
For the most part, it's lonely, I suspect.
And unnatural, perverse.
O&D is nice.
No, they're not. Nor do they share our values. Kier sorted the departments by virtue. Macro dads are clever and true, while O&D's more cruelty-centered.
How many departments are there?
Probably
Around
30.
5.
No one's quite sure.
O&D tried a violent coup on the others decades ago, and that's why they reduced them down to 2, and that's why they keep us all so far apart now.
That's an absolute fiction.
Did they ever kill anyone?
Nope. There was no coup. No one killed anyone.
Then why don't we ever hang out?
I mean, I'm 99% sure there was no coup.
So just a great, not only Dylan, I mean, Dylan, he's my favorite character. Always has the great theories, always so much fun, always so funny. His theories even earlier on in the episode where he's talking about these theories of what his outie does, that his outie is a bodybuilder, which is just hilarious. And also seeing that Helly is kind of adopting that kind of smart alecky. And almost, I would almost assume that Helly and Dylan are kind of the newer of the hires. Clearly, Helly is the newest, but they have more of that adolescent kind of energy. You know, where they, having fun, talking shit. Where Dylan's more of maybe a teenager angsty, especially towards the optical and design department, has some anger there, into conspiracy theories and things like that. Very much of a teenage adolescent thing. And then Helly is kind of like a young kid coming into her own, kind of realizing that she can have fun and poke fun and things like that. Interesting dynamic. Love that scene. Cut back to not cut back to. Now they enter in the Perpetuity Wing, and they're greeted by the first of many wax statues. I don't know if they're made of wax, but these statues of all of the CEOs. The first one is the current CEO, James Eagan. We get to see all of the many CEOs. They also include the dates where they served as CEO, starting off with Kier Eagan was 1865 to 1939. Myrtle Eagan, 1941 to 1959, so there's a little gap there. Interesting to see who filled in that gap. There's Baird Eagan from 1959 to 1976. Gerhardt Eagan, 1976 to 1987. And then Philip Pip Eagan, which I would imagine the Pip's Bar and Grill came from this guy who started as CEO in 1987 to 1999. And I would assume James Eagan took over in 1999 to the whatever current day is. I would imagine. That would be my guess, but we got to see some of the placards of it had their birth dates or the dates that they were alive as well, but that is, so we know that Severance started in at least according to this, 1865. And you kind of go around and you stand in front of one of these statues and the little speaker box plays and they tell you some quotes or whatever, and that's why they have the bingo card so you can fill out the different things. And if you look at the bingo card, which the first one is that, or one of the boxes is Lumon will save the world. Like if somebody mentions that, which the whole Lumon thing is very religious. One of them is there's an Eagan depicted with a halo. Lumon is referred to as a she. It is very much culty, very much religious in a lot of ways, really trying to indoctrinate people who are within that severed thing, that are detached from all other reality, to kind of give them something, which is why Irving wanted to bring Helly there to provide her. He was talking to Helly, and it's like, history gives us context for who we are, and when we found ourselves waking up on that table, we had no history, we had no context, and the Perpetuity Wing is something that will provide meaning, provide purpose. And in a lot of ways, for a lot of people, that's what religion is. Religion provides people with purpose in life, with meaning in life. And some people feel that helps them. And that's a lot what this Perpetuity Wing is. We find out that the back part of the Perpetuity Wing is all about the first CEO, Kier Eagan. But on their way to that back part, they go through this one area that's all like pictures of people's smiles, like their teeth, and kind of creepy. And it's like, oh, these are all the people that we've helped, and this area is constantly updated with new smiles and all of these things. And Dylan's bummed because there was a smile that he was attracted to that is clearly not there anymore. So they go into the back part, and we see that Keegan's part, not Keegan, Kier Eagan's part is a replica of the house he grew up in. So you're like inside of a warehouse, like a giant room, and inside this giant room is this giant house with a manicured lawn in the front of it. And they go into the bedroom, and it's set up like a museum. Like, don't touch, don't sit on the bed. Like, this is what it looked like inside of his bedroom, supposedly. And Mark kind of takes a step over one of the boundaries to potentially maybe sit on the bed. And Irving, being the stickler for rules, stops him, sees that he has one of these bingo cards, and is really upset because they're supposed to be providing Helly with this opportunity to like get purpose and to like help her out, because he knows that she's having a hard time adjusting to this stuff. And while they're arguing, while they're going back and forth, Helly disappears. And she's running. And she's running. Mark's chasing after her. She ends up getting to the doorway in the stairwell that we were at before on her first day, and it's locked. So she goes and grabs a fire extinguisher, breaks the little narrow mirror that's on the door, breaks it open, reaches through with the note, and is trying to get her head through in order for her brain to switch over to read this note saying, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to quit. And Mark shows up, pulls her back through. She cuts her arm while he pulls her back through. And da-da-da-da, of course, Mr. Grainer shows up, the one man you never want to see. He shows up, and he takes Helly to the break room. Mark can't cover for her this time. It is 100% on her. Milchick is waiting for her in the break room. We actually get to see the break room. It's a dark room. He dresses her wound first, sits her down. She puts her hands on these like scanner things. There's a screen in front of her. It's like kind of a semi-transparent screen. On the other side of the screen is where Milchick is sitting, and he's got a little microphone going into a tape recorder, which, as we saw in the previous episode, Petey played a cassette from the break room. So these are the cassettes that they clearly archive these break room meetings with. And I would imagine they use old technology, especially cassettes, because it's more secure than just a digital file that could easily be uploaded or broadcasted or put on a thumb drive or whatever. And he has like this file cabinet where he pulls out this compunction statement. And, you know, it's a file cabinet of these like transparents that he puts on this like overhead projector. So if you ever went to school in the 90s, you remember overhead projectors and the little transparency sheets. Well, that's what these sheets are, of like these statements that whoever's in the break room, they need to read. They get really projected onto the screen that's in front of them, but really seared into their head. I mean, you're staring directly into a overhead projector in a lot of ways. And she starts having to read. We see Cobel watching on the other side of a two-way mirror, or maybe not a two-way mirror, but Cobel is watching as this is happening. And let's play a clip.
What is this?
Read it.
I don't want to.
No. Do.
Forgive me for the harm I have caused this world. None may atone for my actions but me, and only in me shall their stain live on. I am thankful to have been caught, my fall cut short by those with wizened hands. All I can be is sorry, and that is all I am.
I'm afraid you don't mean it.
Excuse me?
Again, please.
So just kind of a brutal brainwashing, negative reinforcement type of a punishment that you get. And it'd be really curious to know what the other things are. Because there's a file cabinet full of these transparencies. So I'm sure there's different ones for different situations. And you just have to stay in there and read it until they believe that you believe what you say, which is just a new level of hell, right? You're already existing awake forever at work, and now when you mess up, this is the punishment. Cut to Mark sitting at his desk, kind of just exhausted with the whole day, bummed out at the whole situation. Dylan's leaving, asks if he wants to turn the lights off. Mark says yeah, so he turns the lights off. So Mark's just kind of sitting there in the dark. He's got his desk lamp on. Decides to swap out all of the group pictures since the new pictures came in, and while he's swapping out the pictures, he finds behind one of the pictures a map. The map that Petey is trying to recreate on the outside. Mark finds the one he was hiding inside. Obviously, Mark's innie doesn't know that his outie has connected with Petey and is, Petey is trying to recreate that map. But now Mark's innie sees this map that Petey was doing, and he looks at it. There's some interesting things on the map. I didn't really pause it and look in depth into it, but Mark decides to keep that map behind his picture of the group photo. So he swaps out all the group pictures. Cut to Petey having more reintegration sickness, bleeding out of his nose. He's in a convenience store, confused, screaming that he needs tokens because that's how Lumon worked. But he's just at like a 7-Eleven or whatever, and it's not going very well. Cut back to Mark leaving work, goes home, realizes Petey's not there, so he decides to go out driving to look for him. And while he's out driving, he sees ambulances pass, and he follows them to the convenience store where Mark sees Petey being brought out by paramedics. Petey passes out, stops breathing. So Mark leaves, goes back to his house, cleans up the basement to make it look like Petey was never there, covering up the couch, putting boxes on the couch, just making it look like things have been stored there, nobody's been sleeping there. And then as he does that, he sees a phone ringing. It's Petey's phone. Somebody's calling Petey's phone, and that's how the episode ends. So we get a little bit more. We clearly know Mark has experience, either personal experience trying to pass messages or other people who have worked there trying to pass messages, because he knew the pen cap trick. He knew the writing on your skin trick. He knows about bad soap, whatever that is. So clearly Mark knows some stuff. There's potentially a department that never gets to leave, which is crazy. We find out that Mark's wife died in a car accident. Obviously, Lumon started in 1866. We found out what the break room looks like, the compunction statements, the hand scanners, microphone, tape recorder, file cabinet full of all the stuff, overhead projector, another person watching on the outside. We don't know who they are, quote unquote, but we know it's not the Whole Mind Collective. Apparently, Petey's brain's supposed to get better, but it doesn't look like that's happening. Let's see. Still don't know what they're doing at Lumon. We don't know what the bad soap is. We don't know what Sunset Parks are. The book, we don't know what's in the book, which chapter 12 of the book was learning to be emotionally nude in front of your wife. In front of my wife, it says, which is his 5th book. So it seems like a self-help type of a book, which makes sense considering they are the people that had all of the different beds ready to go for their unborn child, so they don't have to deal with the trauma of losing a bed that they slept in for many years. We get to see what the Perpetuity Wing is like. We get to see all the different CEOs. We get to see how much more Lumon is like a religion in a lot of ways. How the Eagan family has passed down as running this company, how it's been in the family the entire time. Let's see. Lumon is referred to as a she. A lot of religious iconography. Obviously, there's Kier Eagan's house, replica of his house in the back. Milchick still taking pictures, reading the book for messages, running the break room. Optics and design, we got to see both of them doing their egg drop challenge. Clearly, there's a little flame brewing between Bert and Irving. We got to see some of the kind of the paperwork that needs to be filled out in Severance that kind of keeps everybody in charge. We got Mark taking that pain into work with the elevator allergies. Cobel kind of being compassionate on the outside but crazy on the inside. Yeah. Natalie with the board. Dylan has some really fun. He has a beloved character that he does sticky notes. Sticky head, where he puts sticky notes on his head. I love Dylan. Like, as far as like comedy relief, having fun, creative ideas, his hate for the O&D department is a little disturbing, but I do like, he's my favorite character. Yeah. So that's the episode. The next episode, episode 4, is the You Are. So it is named after this book that was supposed to be given to Mark. So we'll see how that plays out. Clearly, that next episode is going to be dealing with that book in some way. So we'll see how it all goes in the next episode of Severance. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.